Hello, everybody. We are live. What is up, Mike
Up,
Cavaliere? Welcome to
Anthony.
AJC and the Web Devs.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hey, I am Mike Cavaliere. Been a software engineer for some 20 years now. I built things. I've managed people. Written one book, which is kind of okay book.
You wrote a full stack Jamstack book.
I wrote a full
The
stack
only
Jamstack
the
book.
only person to ever do it.
I'm the only person to ever do it. Probably, yeah. Well, I got that going for me. But yeah, I still build software. Right now I'm working on a storybook app that we're going to talk about a bit. What else is to tell about me? Anthony, you know me better than I know myself, probably.
Well, the first thing I'll point people to is right here, fsjam.org/19. You could hear
Boring.
episode with Mike where we went over his whole background. We talked about your book a lot on that episode and some of the work you're doing with EchoBind. And yeah, I think you're also doing a bit of a pivot now to do some more DevRel type stuff, which I think is very cool because I remember you from writing blog posts about like Bison, which was this really cool open source framework that people didn't really know a lot about and didn't have very good resources for. And there needed to be like some good content around it. So I think you're someone who's already done open source DevRel, certainly, and some DevRel, kind of on the side for some of the jobs that you've done. But it seems like that's the type of thing you're trying to get more involved with these days.
Yeah, I'm definitely dabbling in it. Like always enjoyed, the notion of like building something for, that personal itch and having fun doing it, but then kind of seeing, okay, what did I do in here that I could teach people about or share with people? And so, it seems like a natural fit for DevRel in addition to engineering itself. So I'm kind of playing around with it, seeing how it goes, doing a little bit of that right at this moment, just talking code and things what we've created and like what's interesting and valuable about it. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I'm almost not sure if this question is trolling me or not, or if this is a legitimate question. If this is a legitimate question, the Jamstack is a way of making front end websites that are decoupled from the back end. And then full stack Jamstack is a way of saying, screw that, man, I want my back end anyway. And then you connect that back end to your front end that was meant to be decoupled from the back end.
Yeah.
So
Jamstack is kind of
dead now.
Anymore,
Jamstack's dead. No one cares anymore. So there was literally a series of articles written last year that all said Jamstack is now dead. No one's allowed to talk about Jamstack anymore. Let's just move on. Let's forget about the whole thing. Let's all go back to WordPress. No, they didn't say that.
If you want to know more about it, Anthony has a whole podcast that talks a lot about it. So go back, watch those episodes. They're fantastic. I wrote a book about it, which is now free because who wants to pay for something?
Cut into the Jamstack.
Cut into the Jamstack. That's right. And you notice very cleverly, if you go to the homepage of that website, the logo is jam on toast. Okay. Not everybody knew the mystery of why that was there. Now you know.
Can you pull it up on your? You should pull this up on your screen.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Cut into it. Look at it's still in my history. Auto populates. Look at that. There's the jam. There's the jam, baby.
And build and deploy a full stack application using React and Next.js.
Yeah.
Which I would the titles sounds a little awkward because you can't do Next.js without React. But I would say Next.js and like Postgres or Prisma,
well,
really.
I did that to hit on like number one, two tech buzzwords, but also the fact that like you could do it with React. You're leveraging Next.js specifically with React. So like I wanted in a quick way to let people know that you're working with these two particular things that one's included in the other, but both of them are really popular technologies by themselves. So yeah, not a perfect title, not a perfect book. Didn't technically finish it, but there's still some valuable knowledge in there.
Finished enough.
And it's free. What do you care? Get it.
Yeah, and it's a good historical document, I think, because in a lot of ways you built out a similar stack to what like Bison would have been. And that was similar stack to Redwood. Like some of these use GraphQL, some of them don't, but they're all kind of using React, and Prisma is kind of the basis of what's happening here.
True. Yeah. So same as Remix, Remix or with the Epic stack. Remix that as well.
Yeah.
Which,
or Create T3 app, another one.
Create T3 app. That's right. So yeah, it goes back to like kind of what we talked about a while ago, which is like, we were still looking for the JavaScript Ruby on Rails, right?
Exactly.
And for those, in the audience, if you don't know Ruby on Rails, or you don't know as much about it, like Ruby on Rails was legendary in the aughts, in the 2000s, because it was the first framework to basically have these generators built in and get popular for the generators. At least I don't know if anybody did it before, but they had these generators where you could just run a command and you have a full create, read, update, delete app just in one command line command. And it was because it was so opinionated, and it just had everything inside of it, ready for you, that you could build entire startups like really quickly. And so, Anthony and I and Chris were like, years ago talking about like what's the Ruby on Rails for JavaScript.
This is the link to the original Ruby on Rails demo that David Hannemeyer Hansen did, where he demonstrates it from front to back and basically builds a blog in like 15 minutes. I highly recommend people check that out. I've never used Ruby on Rails, but like I watched that tutorial and I was like, oh, like I get it, because like it was like Redwood, and since I use Redwood, it was like I could see that the Redwood tutorial even is partly based on that demo. It kind of goes like a similar thing of like, how do you run a command and scaffold a backend with like an admin interface, and then be able to just like create a blog post and like not like create the infrastructure to create the blog post at the same time.
So is it, I guess I'm going off topic a little bit. So, feel free
this is all the topic. Don't worry. We'll eventually arrive at AI, but this is all important background, because this is what, you and I were talking about for years and years,
So like, so where is it now? Like, who is there like something that's close enough to Ruby on Rails for JavaScript? Is Redwood it? Like, what's your opinion on this?
Well, I would say I think we already mentioned how there's things like Create T3 app and Remix and the Epic stack and Next.js going farther to the back end, especially with React Server components. Mm-hmm. So I think actually now there's a whole bunch of different options. I think Redwood was there first. Redwood was there multiple years before any of these other frameworks. And many of these frameworks arrived in a very similar place to where Redwood started. I don't think Redwood gets any of that credit, but I'm not going to be like a bitter old man yelling at cloud about who gets credit and who doesn't. So I don't want to go into that. But at this point, there's tons of great full stack JavaScript options. So they're all kind of React based, Svelte Kit, they say they want to be kind of like a Ruby on Rails also now, but I don't think there's any real meta frameworks as there are for React. Like React, you got these whole set of frameworks, and you got like meta frameworks. You have like Next, then you have other frameworks built on top of Next. So you don't have anything built on top of Svelte Kit yet. That kind of gives you that whole backend integration in a way that would actually get you into Ruby on Rails work. So a Ruby on Rails world. So I think, some JavaScript devs have it, some don't. It kind of just depends what your view layer is and whether people have built out all these frameworks that give you all the Ruby on Rails functionality. I think Ruby on Rails developers would probably be like, man, none of these things are as good as Rails. But, they do most of the same things at this point, except maybe short of like really specific things like email functionality and cron and like some higher level event-based stuff. That can still be a little challenging.
Yeah. The thing that I'm on the lookout for is just like, I mean, for one, there's too many options, and especially in React land. JavaScript land in general is a big, wide world now. But like in React land in particular, like there's too many ways to skin a cat. And then, in terms of like the frameworks that we've got out there, there's still, the thing that I liked about Rails is like, you don't have to think. It's just the thing that you grab, and it has all the tools. It's got the authentication. It's got the error tracking. It's got the email. It's transactional email and everything. Everything is just kind of decided, and you don't have to think too much about it. I think that in order to get that out of where React is right now, you gotta form a strong opinion and be like, okay, Epic Stack is the one for me, or so it's some derivative of Next.js or something like that. And it's still like, there isn't like that one framework to rule them all.
Yeah. This is a really interesting question, and I could rabbit hole on this for a very long time, so I'll try and be kind of brief. But they're asking why had Redwood not become as big as Next, even though they have a lot of contributors who are very senior, and the founder of GitHub was the guy behind it. I'm someone who's kind of been there from the start, so I'm like kind of uniquely positioned to answer this question. But I think there's a lot of reasons. I think Next.js started with a lot more momentum, both because it had already been around for 3 years when Redwood was invented. Next.js, I think, goes back to like 2016, 2017, and Redwood wasn't founded until 2020. And even though Redwood was funded in the sense that it had like a billionaire who created it and had a bunch of money to throw around, there wasn't the same imperative for growth that Next.js had, being coupled to Vercel, which was like VC, like plowing hundreds of millions of dollars into this thing to like really make it shoot off. And Next.js is a great framework. Like, you can't discount that. Like, it's just good. It's very good. It has a great team of people behind it. You got great DevRels like Lee on it. So, I think they just had a couple key pieces that helped them both continue their momentum in a way that Redwood was just it'd be hard for them to catch up with it. And then there's kind of this winner take all mentality with some open source things where people are going to start with this question of what's the most popular thing and kind of let that decide where they're going to go. So you get a lot of momentum just by starting as the first big React meta framework. You're just going to continue to get more people kind of looking at it. And I think a lot of JavaScript developers don't really want a Ruby on Rails. That was kind of one of the things I came back to over and over again, is that even when I would show them Redwood, they would still be like, well, that's cool, but I don't really want to use that. But I'm like, but it does all the things. And they're like, yeah, but I want to do all the things. I want to do it myself, And I think that's just the type of JavaScript developer. That's just a very prevalent type of JavaScript developer who just wants to do things themselves. They want to create their stack themselves,
Interesting.
So there's like 5 or 6 reasons, but I think it's kind of all of those factor in. Great
question. Great answer too. Cool. Should we talk about StoryTime?
Let's get into StoryTime. Yeah. So AI. I've been talking about AI in all of my recent episodes. So where are you at with AI? Why did you want to build an AI app?
AI, artificial intelligence. Well, AI, we know it's like really trendy now. But I've been interested in it since before it was trendy. And I've always thought it was like, the kind of thing that's going to really take off, but I didn't quite anticipate like ChatGPT coming along and it being like, so commonplace and being able to like, have this really strong conversational interface that just anybody non-technical or otherwise could really get. And so now with this explosion of APIs and tools, there's so much you can do with it. I'm just like addicted to it and I really want to absorb as much as I can. But like as part of that, like I want to build things with it, and so I've dabbled a little bit with like prompts to generate code and, just scripting some basic stuff like that. And I started to think about like, what are some of like the use cases where you can take something like, the OpenAI API and make it useful to someone who has no idea about prompting or doesn't want to deal with prompting. And this is one of them. The first thing I dabbled in was like a Bill Murray quote generator.
Oh, is that still live? Do you still have that?
I don't even know. Like, let me see.
I love that.
Let's see. Murray GPT.
One thing that I saw that was fun is someone using, they say, explain.
It's broken.
Yeah, probably an API key. Yeah. I saw someone who is doing explain dark matter in the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants. So it's like explain complex topic in like voice of character really well. I think that's pretty cool. One I've tried before is have like had Joe Rogan explain like the IPO process or something.
Did you see that there was one guy who hooked this Python script to Google Vision, and he basically had this audio of he gave it the voice of David Attenborough and had
So
it
made a nature
narrating what it
documentary.
saw.
Oh wow!
So
Yeah.
basically, it was describing him as like wearing glasses to like capture a mate, like as if he was an animal. And
yeah, we should. So this is what we should do. We should create a story with StoryTime so people know what we're talking about.
Let's do it. So yeah, story time. Yeah. So back to my story about story time. Scratching my own itch, I was like generating stories for my kids with ChatGPT, and they liked them. And so I wanted to like, all right, well, let me make this into like an app, because it can be made a lot simpler than throwing together a prompt for everything. So
what you would do is you would sit down ChatGPT and you would say, I want you to write a story for my children who are around this age, and I want it to be about this thing. And basically you would just write a message straight to it, and then it would give you a story back. And then you started having this idea, hey, I could automate this and give you a couple of key ideas of like, who is this for? What is it about?
Exactly. And I pulled up this list of age groups and the topics associated with them directly from ChatGPT as well, so to save me the trouble of doing the research. And then I just kind of altered it. But let's say you got a kindergarten kid, and then, it's going to populate with topics that might be relevant to kindergarten kids. Same with like, early elementary.
So the topics are dependent upon the first. The second is dependent on the first one.
Yep. Okay. And there's some overlap, but like, they all should be, loosely interesting to kids in that age group.
Interesting.
So like, let's pick building and construction. Building and construction is
one thing you did that I really liked is that not only does it generate the text, you also have it generate an image at the same time. So is the image using DALL-E?
No, it's not actually. Initially, the initial version of it was using DALL-E, but right now I'm using Stable Diffusion.
Okay. Yeah, Stable Diffusion was one of the first.
Yeah, it was one of the first like open source models initially, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did it because I found that like DALL-E, it has more restrictive rate limits, and so I found that I wasn't able to like develop for it quickly enough, or have the responses.
DALL-E also it has this issue of having a really specific look also, and so it's like people see it and they know it looks like an AI generated image. And also it will generate all this nonsense text and like throw it around images. So it'll be like signs that are just like gobbledygook. It just looks stupid.
Yeah. And so I did find like for what I'm doing, it produced some pretty good images. Because I did want a little bit of a cartoonish style, because we're talking kids here, and that's the kind of thing that would.
And does it just do a cover, or does it do multiple images throughout?
Right now, it just does a cover, and multiple images is a challenge with the current state of AI tech. And so that's one that I'm delving deeper into. Like you can't get, or I challenge you to try and take an existing AI API and just have it create multiple images with like the same object or same character.
Well, what I would do is, if the story is long enough, you could just take like first third, middle third, last third, and have it generate an image on each of those blocks of text.
You can have it generate an image about each of those blocks of text, but if it's containing a character, the character is going
to be the character
different in each.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, the images need to be just kind of like abstract. It's not necessarily illustrating the story. It would just kind of like they can be. I've done this with blog posts where it's like they represent the theme of the thing you're talking about. So like I have a blog post that's about like ethics of AI for nonprofits. So you'll have images of like a giant dashboard where someone's like using it and things like that. So like it's like general images. It's not like it can't really portray the actual story itself in an accurate way.
Yeah, and that is an idea. I've thrown around the idea of doing that, and maybe I will at some point.
And I think we're going to get into this, but we're getting a question basically, what's the tech stack for this? And this is using GPT's just endpoints, and so you have an API key, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I got an API key, definitely. So yeah, this is using the OpenAI API to generate the content. It's using Stability AI API to, let's see, where's their models? Image. Using their API to generate the images, and
I like
the
that GPUs go burr image.
and I'm also using, well, let's talk about the tech stack. So Next.js is the framework that I'm using.
As we set all the foundation for, that's a framework
Yeah,
that
I
people
know.
have experience. You literally wrote a book on it.
Yeah, we ought to get a kickback for that. I'm using the Vercel AI SDK, which is awesome.
This is nice. Yeah.
It really is cool. I like it a lot. The Vercel AI SDK does a lot of things. It gives you, but it gives you tools for building like these type of conversational interfaces that are like, you've got a server side stream that's streaming to the Open API or Anthropic or wherever it is, and then you've got this front end portion that needs to take input. It needs to send it to the API. The conversational API needs to stream it back to the client, and then you need to do some other stuff with it on the client. And so I'm using this and not even using the full capabilities of it, but just like the basics, and it's pretty awesome. And then let's see what else is in there. The database is Prisma, Prisma ORM.
What is the purpose of the database? What data
Right now,
is being persisted?
Right now, the stories are being persisted. And so I'm doing that so that I can gauge like the quality of the content. I want to see.
And are they just persisted for you? Because there's no login, so people can people go back to see the stories they've generated?
No, I'm working on that right now, actually.
Gotcha. Yeah. There's no authentication or anything built into it right now.
Exactly. Like right before I was talking to you, I was like working on that actual branch, and I want people to be able to save other stories that were created. Because
do you know Suno AI, the music generation app?
What is it called? Suno?
It's called Suno.ai, SNUO.ai. Yeah. This is a really cool app because it gives you the ability to, they let you generate like 5 songs a day, and they're like 2 minutes, and then you can create playlists, you can share them, and you just get to like kind of have this growing list of like songs you create, and then you could pay more to generate more at a time. But I really like this model, and like I've shared this with some of my friends, and like they went ape over it. Like one of my buddies is he's a teacher, and he teaches like 8th grade, just like English, biology, like math, like a whole bunch of subjects. And awesome. He started creating songs for like the Pythagorean theorem and like natural selection. So he was like coming into class, he's like, "Hey guys, I just wrote this rap song about the Pythagorean theorem." It's like a whole song that he was creating with this AI stuff. So I'm totally like this awesome. If you're looking for inspiration for like what you could do with this, in terms of sharing stories, saving stories, I would look to this app for some inspiration.
Okay, cool. No, I definitely will. Definitely put that one in the show notes. This is awesome. I feel like I played with an earlier version of this or something like it, because there's more than one of these out there.
There is, yeah. Another one just blew up called like Udio. It has a really weird name. It's not as good. Like the songs it creates are like Suno songs. They're actually sound like full songs. It's absolutely mind blowing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, you'll get down with this app, especially because we were talking before about how you have a music background. So I highly recommend playing around with this tonight. But let's go back to Storybook. So we should kind of check out the story you generated.
Yeah. So Tiny Builders of Tinkertown. Everybody pause and read. Let me know when you're done, everybody.
You should read a little bit of it for our non-sighted friends who are listening.
All right. I present to you the Tiny Builders of Tinkertown. In the heart of Tinkertown, a special construction project was underway. Today, the Tiny Builders were constructing a playground, and every animal was buzzing with excitement. Riley Rabbit, the fastest digger, zipped around, marking where the slides and swings would go. Marvin Mouse, with the sharpest eyes, measured each piece of wood to ensure everything was just the right size. Together with Terry Turtle, who knew all about safe building, they made a great team.
Okay. I'll do the next page. As the sun climbed higher, The playground started to take shape. Swings stood tall, ready to fly high. Slides curled like big shiny ribbons. Even a merry-go-round spun gently, ready for
Don't you upstage me,
world.
Campolo.
By the end of the day, all the little animals of Tinkertown gathered to see their new playground. The children cheered as they climbed, swung, and slid. Riley, Marvin, and Terry watched, their hearts full of pride.
Dun, dun, dun. Today, we built more than a playground. We built a place for joy. Terry smiled. Riley and Marvin nodded, knowing tomorrow they build another dream just as splendid.
So that's great. Like, this is one of the things I did myself frequently with ChatGPT. I had it create these ridiculous short little stories about things, some of which were little obscene because if you presented it just correctly, you could get it to create a story about, say, two people creating a generation-long violent conflict around two people pooping each other to death.
What a way to go. My goodness.
No,
well, yeah.
It's just really cool how it understands implicitly how stories are structured. So it could generate thousands of these.
Yeah. And I really got like, I have like a loose unprotected admin interface where I'm just listing them out. And it's already got like 12 pages worth from like minimal access. So some of that's me testing, I'm sure. But like, people have expressed like that they enjoy it. Like I met with a friend today and he's definitely used this with his kids. Started recommending some cool features that I can do to this too. You can actually put in, the length thing. I will tell you this. So like prompt engineering, another reason why I built this was to get better at prompt engineering myself and like learn really how to prompt properly. Length is one of those things that's a little hard to get. So this is like, you can make it generate a longer story. It won't be like perfectly accurate.
Yeah, I want to dig into this because with things like that, you can literally prompt it in terms of interfacing with the chat endpoint or the chat UI interface and tell it, hey, I want this to be longer or shorter.
Yeah.
But there's also ways to get into the guts of it through other means to express these types of things. And that can differ from model to model, service to service. So when you do this, how are you going about telling it you want to do a longer or a shorter thing?
Well, so I'm not going that far yet. So right now, I'll show you guys, what's under the hood. So basically what's happening is just one big prompt right now. So if I go to create story, I've got like a templated prompt that basically is kicking stuff out.
Yep. Mm-hmm. This is how most people do it. You have
exactly
a giant prompt and you have in curly braces the things.
Yeah. And so,
by the way, if someone's asking this, I think the answer is no. This is not open source.
Not currently, no. But yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this just yet. I may make it.
This is your window into the magic. So
this is your window into the magic. But if you want to know how to do stuff like this, I'm glad to chat.
Yeah, you got your DMs open, and Mike's a friendly fellow. So if you want to learn more, just hit him up and pay him.
Yeah, pay me. No, I'm kidding. I'm glad to tell you about it. But this is what I'm doing to control the length. So this is like an old, apparently, prompting trick, is where you give it some severe consequences and it'll make it do what it's supposed to a little bit more intensely. People will put stuff like, if you don't do this, I'll kill your grandmother. Like, something intense. It's a little too much for me. I don't really want to threaten any grannies.
Yeah. Okay, so with prompt engineering, it's a little bit like alchemy. You hear things like this about like, if you say do this, then they'll be able to do it. And I would say it's true. I've had many long conversations with GPT where I can convince it to do something. I think the idea of threatening it to get it to do something is not the right way to kind of think about it. It's more so you want to present a circumstance in which it would be okay for it to do something. So if like you say, I need this to be very long because I need to write an academic paper that is going to be considered very rigorous and needs to be well done. It will be like, okay, cool. I'm going to give you like 3,000 words versus like, I want this to be a tweet that's going to come across. Like you don't want to think about it as like trying to coerce it into doing something. You want to think about kind of tricking it. Like it's like you got hypnotized it into like thinking it's in the right situation to do the thing that you want it to do.
And is that like known to be more effective?
That's my experience having worked with it a long time. And I think when people say like you need to threaten it to get it to do something, I think that's kind of like a second order advice that people gave that has been kind of distorted a little bit.
Interesting. Because I've seen a lot of people use that technique, oddly enough, like people that know more than me.
Well, because it's easy and simple, it sticks with you. And like I said, it does work, and it does work in certain situations. But I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying the more effective way to think about it is giving it the right context. So what they're doing is they're presenting a context where it feels like it has to answer something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
But as more people do this, they can correct their models to not do that. Yeah. Like they can build their own logic in saying, hey, people are threatening you and saying the world's going to end. They're fucking with you. The world's not going to actually end. And then that can be built into their own base prompt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good call. Another thing, like talking about prompt engineering, one thing that's in the prompt engineering guides, like actually I'm not doing this here, but you really should. Like you have to give it an expert, where you basically let it adopt a persona, like you are a children's book author. Oh, look at that. Copilot knows.
There you go.
Yeah. And, this is basic prompt engineering, but by making it into an expert, you're automatically accessing a big chunk of knowledge from the LLM. And so like, this is something that I do by default with almost every prompt that I write. Or if you, another good thing to look up is ChatGPT Auto Expert. This is like a set of custom instructions that you can just paste into your account and it'll automatically
bump your font up.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
I have not tried this. I've heard about it.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. You can basically here, let me open a new window.
You should talk about the one you're talking about also, Grimoire.
Oh, Grimoire. Yeah, that's for code. There you go. And so Grimoire is really great for coding. So like here, write an address form component in React using React hook form and shad CN UI. Usually this will challenge it really well. It won't do it with best practices necessarily, but it'll definitely give you some code to work with. Grimoire is just a custom GPT that is tailored for writing code, and it, in some scenarios I've used it separately from like GitHub Copilot, and it'll just boilerplate things really well. I'm really pushing it to the limit though, because I'm asking it to use things that are like updated relatively recently. So it's probably not going to give you the best results. It's not the best example, but if you ask it some more involved stuff that is like TypeScript or JavaScript based or Python based or whatever, that doesn't depend on.
Dude, LLMs are killer at TypeScript.
Yeah,
it's Microsoft, of course.
Here, let me stop and ask a more generic one. Show me how to create a linked list in TypeScript. When's the last time you created a linked list? It's the first thing that came to mind. Do you know what a linked list?
I know what a linked list. I've never created a linked list. I know that it's like a train where the front car connects to the back car, and then you have your train. Actually, no. So I know what a linked list is. Mostly, I like actually understand linked list because the linked lists have most people explain blockchains, and that each block is connected to the block before it. So that's why the whole thing needs to be like traversed across, and why it's actually like secure, because each block is verified by the block before it, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the most context I have for linked lists, is using it as a metaphor for blockchains.
Yeah. I mean, I remember this from computer science in college. I don't even know how I thought of this just now, because the last time I used this was probably in college.
Yeah, totally.
But it's a cool pattern. But anyway, Grimoire is really cool. What was the other one? ChatGPT Auto Expert. So like, let me see. I'll do a simple prompt with that.
Cool. And I just updated the YouTube description with all of these links. So if people are watching, you just refresh, you'll see all these links in there.
Tell me about the capital of Uruguay. All right. So Auto Expert, ChatGPT Auto Expert, is a set of custom instructions that you paste right into your settings in OpenAI that will allow you to do things like say, okay, verbosity is 5, and then you put your prompt in, and it'll control how verbose it is. In addition, what it'll automatically do is select an expert based on your prompt, and then make your prompt better and teach you better ways to do the prompting in the process. And so like, 3 things that you'll or 2 things that you'll learn out of the prompt engineering documentation in OpenAI and Anthropic and whatever. Number 1, assigning an expert. Number 2, have it define a plan before you ask it to do something. So it's going to give you better results if you say, all right, well, let's just say you say, okay, build me a markdown spreadsheet of the most important cities in the world for commerce. If you have it define a plan first, it's going to do a lot better job than if you just asked it to do that directly. Same thing with like anything complex and involving coding. And so this just kind of does that for you, this set of custom instructions. So it simplifies the process. And so you'll just end up getting better results. It also provides like links that don't always work. This is the case they did, but it provides links too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, this is a custom GPT. So just so people know, basically what that means is...
Well, this one isn't. So yeah, not to cut you off, but like they have a custom GPT for it. This is not the custom GPT version.
No, sorry, Grimoire. You're using Grimoire right now, right?
No. I'm using Auto Expert. This is just ChatGPT.
Oh, using okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I switched quickly. Like this isn't Grimoire anymore.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, I was fussing with the show.
This is Grimoire.
I lost the thread real quick. So how do you get from Auto Expert to ChatGPT? Because Auto Expert is just a repo.
It's just right. It's just, so in your settings, I don't want to open my settings here, but like in your settings, you can paste custom instructions. And so you go here, they have a chat one and a dev one.
Gotcha.
You go in here and
so this is a custom GPT, right?
This is a custom GPT. Yeah, that's not what I'm using.
Yeah, because I wanted to make sure that distinction is clear for people, because Grimoire is one and then that one is one. What you were doing though was not that.
Correct. Because this started before GPTs were a thing, custom GPTs. And so, so this is the set of custom GPTs, and that's newish. But what it was before that is Auto Expert and Auto Expert Developer. And basically, you would take these markdown documents and you paste that into your settings, and it just automatically does this for every prompt you write.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it's also got like slash commands and stuff too.
Because ChatGPT has custom instructions now, but they didn't always.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can do like help review. So like, so help Uruguay. Oh wait, actually no, help give it a list of commands.
This is kind of like a Discord bot with the slash commands.
Exactly. Yeah, and you could make these commands. That's the coolest takeaway from this too, is like you can.
You bump your font up.
Yep. Sorry. Yep. So you can make your own slash commands with ChatGPT if you wanted to, which is pretty cool.
No, that's awesome. I've seen some things where people will like the way they can interact with an LLM, and they'll like create kind of like a pseudo programming language real quick, and then just like start them programming with it, like in the language they created, because they prompt it with enough instructions for it to extrapolate an entire programming language.
That's a lot of fun.
This stuff is just mind blowing to me.
I think it's also got, this one's also got, where is it? You can make it, share alternate views or perspectives on a topic. You can make it argue with you.
I like that because ChatGPT, it has a perspective.
It does.
It will, if you ask it about enough topics, you'll start to learn its perspective on the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So how do we get down this rabbit hole? We were talking about story time. Oh yeah, we were talking
about prompt engineering and just like how the prompt worked.
Yeah.
You went into the prompt code. That was super useful. Basically, what you showed me there with your prompt and how you're injecting variables is exactly what I imagined you were doing when I kind of used this app myself. So I definitely recommend people who are interested in this kind of stuff. Like prompt engineering basically means you create a template that you feed to an LLM with a couple variables you can swap in and out. Like really, that's what most prompt engineering comes down to. Am I right?
Yeah, I would say that the prompt engineering is how you write the prompt, but then like if you're building an app based on prompt engineering, that's exactly it.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, the what I'm defining is how this you actually can productize this and turn it into a thing. The way you actually get it to output something useful in the first place is kind of just figuring out the way to explain it in explicit enough language, and that's something that I don't think is quite. It's a hard thing to put into like specific rules and terms and like teach someone to do. It's something that I only really learned to do just from like using ChatGPT just over and over again every single day and just seeing what it would give back and then like tweaking what I said. And so how did you, is that kind of similar with you? Did you just work with ChatGPT a lot and that's kind of how you start to understand how to work with it? Or did you find these prompts? I've read these docs, and to me, this focuses more on like how do you get the right stuff into your prompt. But I don't know. I felt like I had to learn a lot just from doing it myself, really.
Well, yeah, and for me it was both. And I know the way I learn, and I learn by doing. But like when I have like these tips along with it, but basically what I would do is I read these sections, took notes, and then I took each thing and I practiced it.
Okay. That's
cool. So like include details in your query, add the model, ask the model to adopt a persona. I went in and just drilled that like 5 times. I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense now. Using delimiters is another good thing. Specify the steps required to complete a task. Like all these things, I drilled them a little bit just to like retain them. And then in my daily use of it, I started applying them more because I remembered them at that point. So that's how I get better at that part. And then when it came to, once I had like a good understanding of, oh, this is how you, for example, like create a kid's story with a prompt. I was like, all right, well, I already know from being a developer what it's like to like make something dynamic. And so like, it was like very easy for me to create like, like this is like liquid templating language, where I just create a project that replaces and injects this stuff and makes it more meta, essentially. That part I already knew how to do just because I've done it so many times over the years.
Yeah, this is the step I'm missing in my current workflow for my AutoGen script, where I want people to be able to say basically like, what kind of summary do you want? How long do you want? How many do you want? How many chapters do you want? Do you want like title suggestions? If so, how many? Like all those kind of things are the things that I want to start building into it.
What is the topic of that blog post? That blog post is great.
So just go here. It's on ajcwebdev.com. Just go there. And then go to posts or blog. And then the one on the right.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Show notes.
Anthony talked about this on a previous episode, the one about Ragged. And this is just a cool process he's got to auto generate the show notes. It's really sick. Read it.
Yeah. So this has no prompt engineering in terms of what you've done, but this prompt here.
This is
sorry. Yeah, this is prompt engineering. There's no ability to modify the variables though.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Because I don't know. To me, like I feel like just prompting in the sense of like giving a thing to ChatGPT, it's like prompting. It feels like it's too lofty of a title for it. Right. And I feel like and I honestly feel like it scares people away who like this is the moment for the English majors, like for people who like learn to write and like the humanities people. It's like they are the ones who have the ability to communicate ideas in language. And when you call it engineering, it like those people are like, oh, okay, well then that's not for me then, So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's an interesting term, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it.
I get you. If people are scared of the word engineering, though, in terms of prompt engineering, they should just look at this Anthropic prompt engineer job that got posted, which is like for $300K a year.
Yeah, it pays well.
Apparently.
In 2024, building just web apps doesn't attract many recruiters. Creating AI-powered web apps like this one is the hot thing right now. What are your views on this, Mike?
Let me look at that question again. I got it off on my other screen.
Yeah.
Who else don't attract many recruiters creating AI-powered apps? I'd like to know more about it. I don't know. Is it the hot thing? I wouldn't be surprised if it's the hot thing. I don't know that I've verified that myself, but I don't disbelieve it for sure.
Yeah. I think there's a hot thing on Twitter and there's a hot thing in actual recruiters. So I can't say whether it is or not. I think the thing recruiters are always going to look for is people with proven track records of working at other companies and delivering results. Like, I think that's going to trump any tech trend, really. That's kind of my take on it.
Sounds valid too. But I'd like to know if there's any, to the person that asked the question, like, I'd like to know how you got that perception. Maybe there's something to it. If this is what like attracts people, I'm curious. I'd like to.
It might be like a foot in the door type thing. Like, if you got 10 people who are all full stack JavaScript engineers applying for a role, and one guy's like, but I know AI. Like, I can see how that making you look like you're cut above, because like once you got enough people who like can work a MERN stack, it's like you're kind of expendable.
Right. Well, Anthony and I were talking about how, like, we don't necessarily believe like programmers are going to lose their jobs because of AI in like this grandiose sense, but like, there is something about having an edge because you understand the AI technology more and you know how to use it and incorporate it in your daily workflows. I think it may set people apart because it's going to become so heavily used that if you don't use it, you might fall behind in some ways. So maybe there's something to that. Not really sure.
I also think there's an interesting distinction to make with being able to create a traditional web app that is infused with AI and like gives greater functionality and value to your customer through AI integrations. And then you yourself writing code, organizing your life, using AI to accelerate yourself. Like, those are both two very valuable things that are kind of separate and both require, they feed off each other. I find that once you use AI in your daily life, you start to understand its potential well enough to build it into a product.
Yeah.
But I think there's actually kind of two separations there. Where it's like you could yourself become a lot more effective just by using coding tools and things like that. Then you could also be like, okay, this is an app I'm building. How could I figure out a way to leverage these AI things in a way that makes this app even doper?
Yeah. I think that you definitely need to consider it. Anthony got me.
Yeah, AI plus MERN will give an edge over just MERN. Yeah, totally. I agree. Like, everyone knows MERN at this point.
it's like a cheeseburger with ketchup.
Yeah. Oh.
Like, it's little
ketchup and mustard.
And
next level.
No, you lost me there. I'm a little bit old school. It's a little too fancy for me with the ketchup and mustard.
You don't put mustard on a cheeseburger? That's crazy. That's funny. What else you got to say about Storybook or StoryTime?
Let's see. What else is so another fun thing is like tying in models together. So like this content is coming from OpenAI. And then this over here is Stable Diffusion. So like that means I have separate prompts. And so like, like create story image, it's like, all right, models are created different. Stable Diffusion, like the prompts are completely different. So one thing I do really like about OpenAI is like the natural language aspects of stuff. I mean, you're very much just telling a person what to do with some constraints. Whereas with Stable Diffusion, you're listing stuff. You're like saying, create this thing in this quality with this detail, with this artistic type. Like you got to give it like a way different language. And so
different kind of prompting.
100%. And one thing that I may do with this, just, to the goal of my own like prompt engineering improvement is like, I was thinking of like, making the model switchable, because I definitely want to try it on Anthropic more and learn the ins and outs of like how Anthropic works. So I could probably put like a drop down just for me that lets me like say,
Different
okay,
models, yeah.
OpenAI or Anthropic or Cohere.
Well, that'll also give you better sensitivity to cost. Like you could weigh different models, see if ones are giving similar output, and then pick the cheaper one.
Yeah. So I do want to do that. And I got a lot of other features planned. Like I definitely want to make it, because like people are starting to use it. Like, I've got friends. I mean, I have to look at I got the analytics like somewhere else, but like, I've got friends and people that I've tweeted out to and all that are playing around with it. And so I want to create some real features around this for the people that are actually using it with their kids. So I'm building authentication in, and then I'm going to make it so that you can like explore the existing stories that people have created and you've created, and then
Are you going to charge for it at a certain point?
Maybe.
I think once you can get to like logging in and doing like that, once you have the base features for that, the easy thing is then just like you have to have some sort of limit, or else someone's going to spam you to death. And then then you say, hey, if you want to go beyond this limit, then you pay this amount, and then you can kind of start like comparing that to your cost for actually running the thing.
Because I don't want to be spending money to work on this.
Yeah, and that's why with these AI things, it's helped me just think about like how do you build a kind of bootstrap SaaS, because I can see the functionality and directly see what it costs, because you just map it to what is the model cost. Like, what does it cost me to feed this thing to ChatGPT, and then I just charge more than that, and then like that is my margin pretty much. That's the only thing I'm paying for.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I'm going to look at like the music service that you put in there, because I was thinking something like that, like the number of generations.
Yeah. Suno gives you 5, and then after 5 a day, you run out. And if you want to create 50 songs a day, then you pay more money.
Yeah, and then a friend had the other recommendation of like me putting like because people would love to have this as an ebook too. So like I can hook this up to generate like physical ebooks, like PDF files and Mobi files,
or add extra chapters. Like someone really likes a story, they want a sequel, maybe a trilogy.
I'll wait until there's a rating mechanism. I definitely want to make it so that you can like stuff. And
that's something I thought of as well, giving people ability to thumbs up or thumbs down stories. Then you start training that so you get better and better stories.
Exactly. Like content control is, I think, a big thing with a lot of AI, like LLM based, like startups or SaaSes or whatever.
That's the RLHF, the reinforcement learning through human feedback. That's just a fancy way of saying thumbs up and thumbs down on output.
Or like, I can put a little feedback, like text box, somebody can comment, say this sucks,
or flag like inappropriate, or like so it feels like it's not right for the age group or something, because that's also like you're gearing something towards kids, and like that can be dicey, especially when you can't have certain guarantees around the output. Like thankfully ChatGPT has built in most stuff. Like ChatGPT is not going to write this like crazy gory story about like murder and death. Like you feel pretty safe about that, but at the same time it'd be nice to just get a way for people to give feedback in a way like, hey, I didn't think this was right for my kids for XYZ.
And like, I want adults to use this, like not just the kids by themselves. But I'll put some kind of language around that.
Disclaimers, every AI system I use now has like so many disclaimers around it. Just CYA type stuff.
So that's it in a nutshell. It's tough. Got a lot of plans for it, so we'll see how it evolves.
Awesome, man. No, it's cool. This is I think this is like a textbook AI app that gives a good way of explaining what it is, how you build it yourself. I think anyone could kind of come away from this episode and feel like, hey, I could build this myself. And I hope you'll love that. If not, then we got some tutorials to create for you probably. But it's just like a front end that you're throwing a prompt at, and the prompt is being selected, and you kind of just have some ways of defining that. But the real work was you figuring out what is something useful that people would want to do with an LLM, and how do you constrain them in a way that lets them define exactly what they want in terms of the type of story and who it's for.
Yeah. And if anybody tries out the app, please like drop me a line. You can get to my
let's give all your contacts. Let's
all
your Twitter, your LinkedIn, all that stuff.
Mike Cavaliere, and
well, you got a homepage.
All the others in the channel, but I'm easy to find. You can Google me, you can YouTube search me or whatever. I'm around. Yeah, I'd love to hear what people think.
Looks just like where you look on my the front page of these images, where there's a little ring around it. It's perfect.
I thought you did that on purpose.
No, that's every episode is like that. I just have an HTML template that does that.
Pretty cool. I wanted to animate this thing for the longest time, but I just never did it.
That's cool. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. This was super fun. It was super great to just like catch up with you. As general, you and I go way back, so it's nice to know someone else from the good old days who are also hacking on AI stuff. It's one of the reasons I enjoy getting Monarch on, because people are fairly skeptical of AI, and I think that's fine. But I think it's like these are the type of things where you can start to show what can you create with this, and like how I would task someone with the thought experiment. How would you have built this before an LLM? If you wanted to build this app without ChatGPT, how would you do that? Do you think you would know how to do that? Probably not.
No, and you're absolutely right about that. It would have been quite daunting.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to show or say, or do you want to call it here?
No, I'm good. Thanks for having me, man. It's good seeing you and good catching up and all that.
Yeah. All right. And you can catch us next time. There are no scheduled shows, so you can find out on my Twitter, AJC Web Dev. Bye, everyone.